Greetings, Northwest. Welcome back to another session of 1 Month to Live with Carrie and Chris Shook. We are continuing our chapters in this book. We have our fabulous co-host, Aaron Campbell, with us today. Good morning, Aaron.
Hello, Terry. How you doing this lovely day?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
I'm good.
So we are continuing in 1 Month to Live. We've done a couple of legacy interviews the past couple of episodes, which have been fantastic. Thanks especially to your wife and Dean and Rick. Now we're continuing on with the chapter, and there's an opening quote at this chapter which really caught my attention. The true measure of a man is how he treats someone who can do him no good. And that really sets the tone for the chapter, I think.
Absolutely. That's a great quote. Samuel Johnson from the 1700s.
And it really is appropriate even these days. And as I was searching for this quote online, I found another version of this, which made even a little more impact on me, which is, if you want to see the true measure of a man, watch how he treats his inferiors, not his equals. J.K. Rowling, as we all know, author. This one got my attention because how do we treat people that we consider inferior? Not that not all people are equal, but how do we treat people that we consider inferior? That's our true measure.
Yeah, and I guess that's what we'll talk about this lesson. So I think that's a great quote, one that I wasn't familiar with. How do we treat those who we see below us? You know, we grew up as kids without bike helmets, and maybe Terry, you should have had one. I don't know. We'll have to talk to your mom about that.
Maybe.
You know, without the side netting on the trampolines and without airbags and all that kind of stuff, and we somehow survived.
Right.
I'm pretty sure that's true. You know, but as we listen to, you know, people describe how they see today's world, and especially in our current problems and kind of through that lens, there's that participation trophy, there's too many restrictions, there's the loss of freedoms that is many times used to explain the problems in our world. And it's the way we see the world. It's the glasses that we wear when we look out at the world. But at the same time, you know, the way we look at safety in our communities and who is allowed to be in our community, you know, that us versus them thing, you know, we're really trying to make sure that our community and who we are around is the safest. And we can see that the way we focus on safety and the way we view, you know, everything from gun ownership, border control, immigration. It's all examples of really the way we are focusing on safety today.
Right. Safety and comfort, right? These are the things that we don't want to have to worry about things. And so safety is a big part of that.
It's a big part of that. That's right. You know, and the problem really, you know, comes when we start thinking, you know, that our happiness for ourselves, you know, means being safe and comfortable. And when we begin, you know, to avoid risks.
Right. That's a great point. And this comes from a movie, Wall-E, where as a human race, they've gotten so comfortable and so lazy, actually. They don't have anything to worry about. Their safety is pretty much preordained. They get everything that they need or want effortlessly. And look what's happened to them, right? This is what happens when we do get too comfortable in our own lives. This is the ultimate outcome.
The ultimate outcome. Thanks, Disney, for that.
Right.
Yeah. So, you know, one question that came up at the book that I thought was really interesting is, you know, how important is comfort to each of us at this stage of our lives? You know, what convenience would be the hardest for us to give up? And this is just kind of an example of our life, right? What convenience? You know, is that your computer, your phone, your microwave, your nice mattress, your coffee maker? I'm sure that is for some people.
Right. Yeah. What would we not be willing to give up? What would we have to sacrifice? You know, that point actually strikes a chord with me, Aaron. As you know, I mean, I love mission trips. I love mission trips. And because of our restricted travel, you know, we haven't been able to take any mission trips for quite a while now. Usually summers are a time to do one or two or more trips. And part of the reason that I love mission trips is because it's a firsthand, tangible, live reminder of the contrast in the lives of the people that I'm serving versus my life and my level of comfort. And it really reminds me of what I've become too comfortable with and what am I willing to live without. And because I haven't had that reminder, you know, traveling somewhere foreign and being with people that don't have the same things that we do, that don't have the same safety and the same level of comfort that we do. Um, People that don't look like us and maybe don't even speak the same language. I haven't had that reminder, and it's changing me. I feel like now I am more comfortable, right? And I'm immersed in this level of comfort that I don't like. I love the mission trips because they remind me of I may be getting too comfortable, and let's change some things. Let's make more sacrifices.
Yeah, and I think one of the dangerous things about that is a lot of times we have to be shocked out of our comfort.
Mm-hmm.
And that's usually not when we've gotten so comfortable at where we are, how we live, our safeties. If it really takes a shock to get us out of that could be a problem.
Right. We have to shock me out of my world. I use my a lot. It's my stuff. It's my home. It's my life. It's my choices. It's my comfort, my safety. I can do things at my leisure on my time with my money. We do have to be shocked out of that, unfortunately, because we're humans.
Yes, we are. And that was a lot of my's. And I think we all fall into that relatively quickly.
Right. Absolutely. So now this chapter is called Starfish, right, Aaron?
It is.
We're on?
Yes, it is about Starfish. Yeah, the Making a World of Difference is the title of this chapter. And he goes on to tell us a really short story about some starfish. The story goes that the businessman was visiting a resort community and left for a walk along the shore. And during his walk, he came across a stretch of a beach like this one, where countless starfish had washed up on the beach during, that night's high tide. We all know what happens with starfish is as the sun comes out, they begin to bake the poor creatures, and they can be trapped in the sand, and then they can't survive. And he wished he could have done something, but there were thousands of them, and there was really no way that he could make a dent. And so he just kept on going, when he didn't know what to do with them. And as he continued down the beach, he came across a little boy who was picking up a starfish and throwing it back into the ocean. And this businessman felt obligated to kind of teach the boy a lesson. Well, thank you for your effort. You do know you're not going to be able to save them all. There's just too many of them that have washed up. And you won't be able to make that difference, he said to the little boy. The boy didn't say a word at first. He kept stooping down and picking up the next one and throwing it in. And as he threw one of them in, he looked up at the man and he said, "Well, I just made all the difference in the world for that one starfish."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great story, right? That just shows the impact that we can have. I love that idea that we made all the difference to that one thing that we can do. Too many times we feel powerless, right? We feel like it's just a beach full of starfish and we can't do anything, so we don't do anything. We can't do everything, so we can't do anything.
That's right. Yeah, so many times our inability to make a significant difference in this world basically handcuffs us, so that we don't do anything. If we can't do the big thing, we won't even do the little thing. What could my small contribution do? Or what will my single vote do? Or what will 10 minutes of my time actually accomplish for that person? Or what will that one word mean, to the person I'm interacting with?
Right. I found this mug, right? One person can only do so much with the only crossed off. One person can do so much. And I've got a movie reference too to go along with this.
Of course you do.
From Justice League. Some people loved it, some people hated it, but there's a scene where things are starting to heat up. They're getting into battle, and Flash says, "I have a confession to make. I've never done battle. You guys have all been in battles. I've never done battle." And Batman just calmly looks at him and says, "Save one." Right. So just start somewhere, right? Just start somewhere with just save one. We think, I can't make an impact, so why even try? But if you think about it, think about what's happened in our lives. Have we been impacted by one word, one sentence, one conversation, 10 minutes, one phone call? What's something small someone has done for us that really made a difference in our circumstances when we needed it? And if we can be impacted by someone else, we can impact someone else with just very little sacrifice, a very little investment.
Yeah. And so often, you're right, we fail to realize that some of the people who had the biggest influence on us, it was sometimes very few interactions with them, but it stopped us and it made us think about something. Why can't we do that for someone else?
Right.
It's interesting that, we as Americans, or especially us here in Peoria, how do we reconcile the fact that we live in these great homes and drive nice cars and eat plenty of food,
Mhm.
while most of the world lives on about $2 a day?
Mhm.
We've lost our ability to see beyond, our lives, kind of like you were saying before, our comfort, really for probably two reasons. And these are the two reasons he calls out in the book. One is that we really do have a human nature, a human drive to be safe and comfortable. That somehow seems to be built into us, and to make sure that those around us are safe and comfortable. The other is that our culture drives us to acquire more and more and more. We're rarely about giving away, but we're great with acquiring and keeping.
Right. And so you've pointed out two great points, or Chris and Carrie Shook have pointed out two great points that you've reiterated. Our human nature drives one thing and our culture drives the other. And so those two don't always add up to great outcomes. And so what do we do in that case? We look back to God. And Romans talks about this exactly, right? Romans 12:1 and 2 ties in perfectly to this. And he tells us in Romans, Paul does, therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. And we all know these verses, right? We've all read these verses. We've studied these verses. Chip Ingram has walked us through these verses. This is what God desires for us, is to offer our bodies as a living sacrifice, not comfort, not acquisition. Offer your bodies as a living sacrifice. There's joy in what he tells us to do.
Yeah, so we're supposed to change, our focus from safety to sacrifice. And this verse has always, scared me to a certain extent, because am I alive? Yeah, I think so.
Right.
And this is calling me to be an alive sacrifice. Normally you look at a sacrifice and it's something that's dead. This is a new twist, right? We're called to be a live sacrifice, a living sacrifice. And that's tough.
Absolutely. Well, I think you said it perfectly. This is our reminder for the chapter. It could be flip the switch from safety to sacrifice. Safety
to sacrifice.
To sacrifice, right? When we feel like we want to be safe and comfortable and close ourselves in, especially in these times, what sacrifice can I be making? How can I live being a sacrifice?
Absolutely. Yeah, and they also pointed out a verse in Proverbs, from Proverbs 21:13. If a man shuts his ears to the cry of the poor, he too will cry out and not be answered. Yes, there's a world of need out there, and are we so worried about our own safety and our own comfort that we're not able to sacrifice, or our own continually get nature, that we're not able to look for those and actually need, and to provide them some very basic things that they need. Again, it's going from safety to sacrifice. We really have to flip that switch.
Absolutely. And that's the mission trip analogy, right? The example I gave in my own life. That flips my switch from safety to sacrifice. Travel to foreign countries, people you don't know, people you've places you've never been, conditions you've never lived in. And it flips your switch from safety to sacrifice. And you really start to trust God and realize, okay, I'm trying to be a living sacrifice and he will keep me safe. My ultimate safety is with him. So I just need to make the decision to flip from safety to sacrifice for my own motivation.
Yep. And then it changes your mindset when you come back home to our culture, to make sure that we're not really hanging on to all those so-called creature comforts that we have.
Right. Exactly. Even things as basic as water.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. We've really been given some of the greatest gifts in what he calls time, talents, and treasures. And this is really so key to us leaving a legacy. Remember, that's the section we're in, is about legacy. And we've already discussed, the value of time, as a very precious and limited commodity. So if we really want to sacrifice something that no one else can give, you can't give that. Everybody else, but there's one thing that I can give that nobody else can do, and that is some of my time to someone. And you can do that to someone you're interacting with that I won't be able to do. And it's one of those, part of our sacrifice, flipping that switch, is we can really impact somebody that nobody else can impact.
Absolutely. You can't give my time away. I have to give it away. Someone else could show up and help build a house. Someone else can show up and make a donation. But for Terry Hargrove to donate time requires my sacrifice, requires my decision and my sacrifice. It's great.
Yeah. And again, so often it's somebody taking that time to spend with you, to say a kind word, to spend a few minutes to help is really what can change the world more than anything.
Right. Absolutely. We just have to choose our words carefully, bridle our tongue.
Yep. Yeah. So we kind of started with a problem statement. It comes back to, are we trying to be safe and comfortable and avoid all risk, or are we actually trying to be something different, right? Here, happiness is not a goal. It's a byproduct of a life well lived.
Right. Too often that we want happiness as our goal, right? I want to be safe, comfortable, and happy. Well, it's not a goal. It's a byproduct.
Absolutely. And it's, the way we spend our time, our talents, and our treasures reveal a great deal about really who we are. Are you more worried about ensuring that your family is safe, or as the Bible would call it, maybe building bigger barns from Luke 12, or ensuring your future? And the Bible may say, don't worry about tomorrow from Matthew 6. Are we more worried about those things than we are about God's kingdom and about relationships and about caring for people?
Right, exactly. Are we worried more about joy? I would argue, this is a great quote from Eleanor Roosevelt, but I would argue that it's not even happiness. It's joy. Joy is the byproduct of a life well lived in Christ.
Yeah. So again, as we this has been a really great list, and I love the way you said flipping that switch from safety to sacrifice. As we tie this back to legacy, really, are we living a legacy of just being safe and comfortable? Or are we there to really spread God's blessings in so many ways and out of our comfort zones, and giving of something that nobody else can give, and reaching people that nobody else can reach, but each one of us?
Right, exactly. And I found this too along the way, that one day your life will flash before your eyes. Make sure it's worth watching, right? Are we going to watch a movie of our lives that is comfort and acquiring and safety? Or are we going to watch a movie that is full of sacrifice and full of joy and full of servanthood and all the wonderful things that are contained in Scripture that lead us to a great legacy that make all the difference in our lives and the lives of other people? Absolutely.
So I think the takeaway from this lesson is if you want to be building a legacy in this area, make sure you're sacrificing more than you're being safe, right? And that will leave a clear legacy for those you're interacting with.
Right.
Great lesson.
Yeah, great lesson. Thanks for the words, Aaron. I really appreciate it. So hope everyone enjoyed it, all 12 of our viewers. Be sure to tune in next time and watch some of the previous lessons if you want to catch up to where we are, and look for the next one. So thanks again, Aaron.
Thanks, Terry. It was a pleasure today.
Pleasure today. See you next time.
See ya.